All right, hello. Welcome to your spreadsheet analysis, problem set 1, part 1 video guide. So this guide is going to walk you through everything you need to do for the first part of your problem set. There are 6 parts to each of the 2 problem sets. You're going to complete them as you go along with the weekly modules. You'll turn in this first problem set during module 3, no later than the end of that week number 3. You'll turn in your second problem set by the end of week number 6. And that'll have 6 more parts to it. And with this part, I'm going to give you all the answers. All you need to do is do what I do on the video. If you have a dual screen monitor setup, even better, have the video playing while you work on one screen. Watch along, rewind. Really, I want you to get understand the basics. If you're familiar with Excel, great. Maybe you'll learn a couple things new that you didn't know how to do before, or you were doing it a different way. If you're brand new to Excel, I'm going to walk through every step of building a spreadsheet. Why is spreadsheet building important? Because if you are presenting data, there's a difference between this and this. If you're looking at a payroll report, it's easier to read, it's easier to understand. You can highlight relevant data. You can make it make sense at a glance. It's all located in the right spot. It's functional. If you update one thing, if the multiplier rate goes up to 2 times, everything changes automatically for you. And so that's what we're going to be building today. And you're going to have a data file provided for you, data file number 1. So all this information is going to come into play, not immediately, but soon into the start of it. So what you're going to do is you're going to open up Microsoft Excel. You're going to go to File at the top, click on New, and then click on Blank Workbook and work off of that. Now I've got that done already, so we're just going to return right back to what we were doing as if this was a new worksheet. And from here, we're going to get started right away. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to type ABC Corporation into cell A1, and you can see it scrunches it up. It makes it to where it's not fully readable. It splits the word into 2 lines, but we're going to fix that. And what we're going to do in this case is we're going to highlight cells A1 through K1. So you left click once and then drag. And then I want you to do is click on merge and center. That's going to merge this entire cell into one cell. So now it's one big header, and we're going to add a second line to the same cell. Now, if you've maybe you're fairly new to Excel, you wanted to insert another line before, you might have done what I did when I first started using Excel, and it wasn't until years later that I discovered there was a way to add a line because I never bothered to look it up, and I just added a bunch of spaces until I got to a second line finally. Well, there's a really easy way to add a second line, and that's holding the Alt button and then pressing Enter. Alt Enter just creates a second line within a cell. And on this cell, I want you to write payroll report. All right, so we have ABC Corporation's payroll report. And now let's change this a few other ways. Let's make this header a lot bigger. We're going to change it to the 16 size font. So up here in the top left, we have the font style. Calibri is the standard for Excel, and that's fine. It's very readable on a computer screen, and it prints fine too. Right here, this drop down will let you change the font size. Let's change it to 16. That seems to match the size of this pretty well. And then because this is the title, let's make it a little flashier. And then right here where it says fill color, let's change this fill color to this top blue option, which is say blue, comma, accent 1, comma, lighter 80%. Nice blue color. And then we're going to take this cell and we're going to make it really stand out by adding a border around it. You can add a border by clicking on this little, there's like a window looking icon right here. And if you highlight it, you see that the word no border appear. But click on this down arrow. Let's go ahead and add thick outside border. So this is going to really highlight this. If we go to print this file, it'll bold that this is the ABC Corporation's payroll report with a nice header. And because this is the header, let's go ahead and make it bold as well. So right here, the letter B, you can click the letter B. You also see next to the word bold there, it says Control B in parentheses. So if I hold Control and I press the B button, it'll also bold it. Other useful shortcuts like that would be Control U to underline, Control I will italicize, and so on. So now we've got some information to fill in because this is a payroll report for a company. We're going to have 5 employees. There's their names right here: Sam Adams, John Carson, Susan Doe, Pam King, and James Smith. And we're going to be entering that information, but we need headers for each of these columns that we're going to be creating. So our first one is going to say employee. If I can type. Employee hourly rate, regular hours. And actually, as you're going, I would like you to insert each of these on 2 lines as well. And there's a way you can do that with wrapping the text. But let's go ahead and type regular, Alt, Enter, and then hours. I'm going to go back to this hourly rate and do the same thing. Hourly rate. We'll make sure that it's 2 separate lines for each of them. Just good practice on that. Overtime. Oops, I held Shift instead of Alt. Overtime. Hours we want next. And then we need regular pay. Regular pay, overtime pay. We've got gross pay, FICA, state tax, federal tax, and finally net pay. All right, all of those things in there. We're going to adjust this column height to the necessary height where everything is visible. All right, I can read all of those. I can read the column width is good. If you can't read all of your values here, then you'll need to adjust the column width accordingly to make sure they're all visible. If anything's not visible, that counts against you on making a spreadsheet, because if you can't read the spreadsheet, you know, it's that reflects poorly on you as an employee, right? If you're making a spreadsheet for somebody and they're like, what is GRO, right? Or what is over team me, right? I guess that one's probably easy to figure out. Well, now OV retray, right? So make sure everything's visible. Overtime pay, gross pay. Okay, you get the drill. And then let's make these, because we got single line and double lines here. Let's make the height of it. And we're going to look here. We can adjust the we can center it or align it in the middle. Let's middle align it so that everything's aligned around the center. So anything single line will appear in the middle. I think it looks better. Maybe you don't, but we'll just proceed with that. Now let's put a thick bottom border on these titles, and we'll go ahead and bold all these headers as well. Make sure after you bold it, you can still read it. Sometimes if you add bold, you know, maybe you could read it there, but now the bolding, it doesn't quite fit. So you might need to adjust those. And you're going to probably need to adjust the column width as we go, as we copy employee names in and so on. All right, now that we've got our headers all set up, we're going to copy over our employee names. So everything from the data file, including these rates, multipliers, federal tax, all of that, go ahead and highlight all of that. And then you can either right click and hit copy, or you can hold the control button and press C. Control C is copy as well. So this will be in the data file. You just open that up and just copy everything over. And then right here in cell A3 underneath employee, you can right click and hit paste, or you can hit Control V for paste, and that'll paste everything in. So again, you might need to adjust the width because I'd like all of these rates and multipliers all be on a single line. I'm gonna adjust that a little bit. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight all of these and adjust them to all be 15 high, so that they're consistent on their height. There we go. Oh, except I didn't want my header that way. There we go. That should be probably 30 because it's on 2 pages, maybe 36. No, there we go. All right, everything's at 15, nice and legible. Underneath this employees right here, we want to create a row called totals. That'll come into play later on, but let's go ahead and get that taken care of now. And above the totals row, so on the last employee here, we're going to want to put a bottom line eventually, but not right away. So if you'd seen earlier, there was a bottom line there. We don't want to probably add that right now because when we copy and paste formulas, it's just going to get erased. So let's leave it as is for right now, and then we'll proceed. So all of this has just been set up using the most advanced thing we've done is Control-C and Control-V, or to copy and paste, or even Alt-Enter to add a line. We haven't done any formulas yet, and one of the great things about Excel is the ability to have formulas where we can write a formula once and copy and paste it to several different spots and have it fill in the same formula into several cells after we've created sometimes very long, complicated formulas. You write it once, you've got all your references correctly, and you can paste it to thousands of other cells without having to write it into every single one of those cells. And with formulas referencing other cells, you're able to adjust things on the fly. If I wanted to find an overtime rate at 1.5 and the rate changed where I'm paying, double time, I would have to go back to all my formulas and adjust them to change a 1.5 to a 2. Instead, because I've got everything referencing this one cell, I can change the value into one cell and have everything update. So we're going to be setting up these formulas with references to, hours worked, regular time, all that. We're not going to just set up, for example, this first thing we're going to do is regular pay. Well, Sam has worked 32 hours at $12 an hour. So 32 times 12 is going to be his regular pay, but I'm not going to write in here equals 32 times 12. Instead, I'm going to click on this and click on this. And then next week, I could use the same template and change the amount of hours he worked that week. And now I've got this one file saved, and this could be my payroll report template. And next week he works 36 hours. I can just type in 36 into that one, and it'll update automatically. I don't need to go into the cell and change all the formulas around. So everything is going to be a reference to other cells. So this first thing we're going to do with Excel, every formula starts with equals symbol. So I'm going to write equals, click on 12, and then the asterisk button is what we use for multiplication, not an X. So $12 an hour times 32 hours worked, $384 of regular pay. And because I'm going to be copying this formula down to the next 4 cells, and the next 4 cells have new information, the hourly rate for each of these employees, the hours worked for each of these employees, I want that formula to copy those references down along with where the formula is. Meaning I want to copy it to here, 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 and here, and have those references also shift along with me, all of the cells. So from here, I can just copy and paste it. Now, if you look, when I left click this one time, in the very bottom right, there's a tiny little box. And you can see the crosshairs of my mouse icon here go from white to black when I hover over that. If I click on that little tiny box and drag it, I can copy all of those formulas down. So now it's equaling 15 times 40, it's equaling 1925 times 40, and so on. Great. We've got all the regular time for all the employees, but now let's figure out how much overtime they've worked. So for this one, overtime worked is the number of overtime hours worked, in this case 0, and we know the answer is going to be 0 because 0 times anything is 0, but we're going to still set this up one time and then copy it down to the last cell, because next week maybe Sam does work 45 hours, so he's got 5 hours of overtime. By setting this template up this way, I'm able to reuse it next week without having to go back and change anything. If I just typed in 0 right now, I've got to change the formula next week as well. So overtime hours worked times hourly rate times the overtime multiplier. Now I was saying if I want everything to shift along with me, I can just have my answer, then click and drag it down. But why am I getting $2.25 for overtime pay when 2 hours of work to 15 an hour times time and a half? Why am I getting $4.81? That's a multiple of that ends in 5. It shouldn't be 81 cents, right? What's happened is that I didn't just copy those lines down line to line when I copied it down. I copied every reference down. So this one is 12 times 0 times 1.5, but because I copied it, it's 15 times 2 times 7.5%. And the next one is, you see that purple cell there is being moved along with the formula. So with Excel, there's a way to lock in a cell. This is called absolute references. And because everything's a reference to other cells, we can say we always want it to be this cell. You can copy everything else in the formula down or to the right or left or up, but we don't want this cell to move at all. We want this 1.5 to always be referenced. And you can write an absolute reference by going into the cell that you're referencing, and you can either type a $ before the letter or the number or both. If you want the column to be locked in and the row to be locked in, you'd put a $ before both of them. And in most cases, it's fine to just always do a $ before both of them and call it a day. There's some formulas where you'd want it to maybe shift right, but not shift up or down, right? Or shift up and down, but not shift left or right. Those formulas, when I teach quantitative methods, we'll use formulas like that, or sometimes operations management. But in this class, I believe we didn't just always use an absolute reference of the exact cell and column for most of them. If not, I'll tell you otherwise. And then once that's locked in, we can drag that down. So now that looks a little bit better. 2 times 15 times time and a half. Well, 2 times 15 is 30. 30 times 1.5 is 45. Okay, good. That worked. All right, and then yes, it's a multiple of 5, but this is rounding probably in all likelihood is rounding 375 up to 38 cents, which is fine too. All right, gross pay, same thing. We want, I'm sorry, this one is not going to be our absolute reference. Gross pay is just going to be regular time and overtime together. So I can do equals this plus this. See why it gave me, anytime you see a bunch of number signs, just because it's too big of a value to fit in that cell. So I had to adjust the width of my column. If you click on this little line between the letters, that's how you adjust the width. So adjust it enough that it is all visible. So I can do equals this plus this for my gross pay, or I can type equals sum. I'm going to double click on the value sum there, and then highlight everything I want to add together. If you have a large string of numbers, you definitely want to use equals sum and not do equals this cell plus this cell plus this plus this plus this plus this. You can just equal sum, highlight all of them, and you're good. I tend to always use equals sum just because it, just for consistency. But whichever one you want to do. If you want to do equals this plus this, that's fine too. It'll get you there. Now in this case, I want everything to copy down. I'm not referencing these values down here, these multipliers or rates down here. So I'm going to just copy this down, and everything is being added together. 600 plus 45 is 645. Great. All right. FICA rate 7.5%. And so in this case, we're going to, again, be doing an absolute reference on this. I'm going to show you a new way to do it. Instead of just going in and editing the cell and adding the $, there's actually a shortcut for that. So let's see what that is. The FICA rate is going to be 7.5% of the gross pay. So I'm going to do equals gross pay times 7.5%. And in this case, I'm going to lock it in by pushing the F4 key, function 4. Now, if you're on a desktop computer, you could just press F4. It's along the very top row of your keyboard. If you're on a Mac, or if you're on a lot of laptops, you'll see on the very bottom row of your keyboard, there's a lowercase FN, which stands for function. You'll hold function and then press F4, because probably if you're on a laptop or a MacBook, those top rows, F4, it might be like adjust the brightness or the volume or some kind of shortcut if you just push it by itself. So by holding FN, it'll change it to the F row keys, and it'll do whatever F4 would have done on an old computer before newer keyboards came around with the shortcuts built in. So Alt F4 or just F4, and you'll see what happens there when I do that is gross pay times 7.5%, press F4, and the last thing that I clicked on, it'll just add the $ to that cell or that group of cells if you've highlighted a bunch of things. If I wanted to do equals gross pay times everything here and then push F4, it'll add it to all of that. That's not the case. We just want to add it to this one cell. So we're good. We're going to pay $28.80 in FICA here. And because I've referenced this cell and locked it in, I can now copy it down to the bottom. Fantastic. We're going to do the same thing here, equals State taxes is going to be 384 times 5%, pushing my F4 or function F4 to lock that in and drag it down. Just realizing that this row I have made too small. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Great. Now I can read everything again. Federal tax is going to be our gross pay times 7%. Lock that in, drag it down. Again, if you don't lock it in, what's going to happen is I'm going to say 384 times 7%. And when I drag this all the way down, it's going to have zeros because it's changing gross pay times this cell, which has nothing in it, times this cell, dragging everything down with it. I'll go ahead and undo that. And we're back to these rates. Net pay is your gross pay minus all of your withholdings, taxes, etc. So we're going to take our gross pay and take out all of our government taxes here. So we're going to start with our gross pay minus all three of these cells, which I can do minus this, minus this, minus this, or I can say minus the sum of these three. So gross pay minus everything here. Either way works. If you want to click on each of these and say this minus this minus this minus this, that's fine too. Didn't close my parentheses, so it did it for me. Popped up and said, "Do you sure you don't want to close that parentheses?" I see. All right, that'd be great. All right, totals. We want to total these cells, and if we click on, we don't care about regular and overtime pay. We want gross pay total. So you can type equals sum and then click on all of these, or shortcut, if there's just a group of numbers all together, Excel will try to smartly grab those numbers you're talking about. If I did equals sum at the end of this row, it would do all the way to possibly here because they're all numbers. And we wouldn't want to do that, but because everything above I want total together, I can do alt equals, and that's going to sum and then try to grab what it thinks I'm trying to sum up. If it's not correct, you can adjust this by clicking on one of the corners, but it's correct. So I can just hit enter. And because I did that with alt equals, it's going to try to auto do the rest of them as well. It's going to say, oh, you want all that sum together? Great. Problem is this one, it's multiplying. It copied everything here down. So it's doing this times this times this. And each of those, it wasn't automatically changing to currency. I think an easy fix here is just, because this is equals a sum of this, I'm just going to drag this formula down and have it be the sum of each of those columns. All right. All right, what else we need to do on this one to make it look a little nicer? Let's put a thick bottom border underneath the last name here. So right above the totals row, we'll have thick bottom border. And then totals, let's go ahead and hit that in bold. All of our totals, let's put all those in bold. That looks good. And then our rates, let's make our rates, let's do a thick outside border on those. And then maybe we will merge rates together. How about that? Let's merge rates together and make the background color look a little nicer. How about this green color here? And maybe border around that. So there's all my rates, everything here looking good. We know exactly what the rates are. If we ever wanted to change any of these rates, maybe the state tax went up to 5.05%. Well, that'll adjust automatically because we've got everything referenced to these cells. Federal tax goes up to 7.3%. Everything from federal on updates automatically. FICA 7.55%. That wouldn't change. That's pretty much, well, of course it would. It hasn't in a while, but of course it would at some point, right? So no problem there. We're good. We're all set so far. So you've got one sheet, and this should be the only sheet on your page, just this one spreadsheet that you've made. So because this is the first part of problem set one, let's save this file. And we're going to save this file as, I'm going to move this a little bit so I can get to the file button. There we go. We're going to go save as, and I would like you to save this as, well, I've got it right here already, but IS3083, which is the course number here, underscore, problem set one, underscore, and then I've got here last name, first name. And what I mean by that is your own last name underscore your own first name. And this helps me keep track of it. I'm going to be downloading all these Excel files into one place. By having it all start with the same thing, I know exactly where to look for the problem sets 1 and so on. So we've got this first name, last name, whatever yours is. Make sure it says your own last name, first name with the underscores and all that. Exactly right. That's going to be something I'm looking for on the grading. Can you follow that instruction, making sure that you can save your file name right? Make sure you got everything, visible. As we adjusted this, maybe some of the cells, the number here was too large. If I open it up and there's a bunch of number signs, that's the kind of stuff I'm going to be looking for in the grading, making sure everything's nicely presented. In this one, I've given you some examples on how you can make this look nice. I'd like you to have it look like this. There's going to be written instructions that say to make, thick outside border here. So I'm looking for exactly this on the first one. In future weeks, it's going to be up to you to make your spreadsheets presentable by choosing appropriate colors. If you change the background color to this yellow color and make your font white, you haven't done a good job. That is blinding me right now. So finding a value, finding a format, color scheme that works well, consistent. If you're bolding all your headers, you wouldn't want, these ones not bolded, right? There's something off about that, or this one's italicized for some reason and not bolded. So consistency, easy to read, presentation quality. That's the kind of stuff we'll be looking for in this class as we proceed. So thanks for following along, everyone. And this first video is a little long, but thanks for sticking with it. If you have any questions, email me anytime. Thank you.